Hi guys and welcome to Studio Wildlife. In this video I'm going to show you how I did this little acrylic sketch of some bison. I'm starting out by just blocking in some basic shapes and patterns for the background, just using some abstract Sennelier acrylic paints. The paper that I'm using is just the Daler-Rowney Aqua Fine textured £140 paper. I'm just using a large flat brush and just some watered down acrylic paints just to create this sort of abstract textured background. The size of this piece is 8 inches by 8 inches and will actually be part of a small exhibition later in October 2021. I will post more about that exhibition on my Instagram and probably do another video about it later in the year, so make sure you subscribe and stick around for that. Once I've done that, I decided for this piece I wanted to make it a little bit more textured and give the piece some actual bumps and lumps with some thick textured paint, or give it an impasto effect. To do this I'm just using a cheap palette knife, a plastic one that you pick up from a set for about £5. And I'm just using some raw umber, some blue and some white to create these various colours to imitate rocks and textured snow. For the areas of the light snow, I want more white. For the areas of the shadowy snow, I want more blue to make it look cold. Once I've got that texture in and let it dry slightly, I start to build up a few more details with the brush. I'm not focused too much on actually painting individual rocks. I'm just adding texture and patterns and trying to make it more abstract but still have that visible appearance of rocks. It's kind of at this point that I thought, this isn't looking very good, and I was getting a bit disheartened and didn't really want to carry on. I gave it a wash with some acrylic paint, just a white wash, just to knock everything back and make it look almost like misty and foggy, and at this point I actually left it and went and took my dog Charlie for a walk. I came back to it and thought I'll have another half an hour and push on because I didn't really like how it was going. So I decided I need to add the bison and go from there. So you can see here that I'm sketching out the bison, and I actually made a mistake and sketched out the bison head too small, so I just very quickly sketched around it. I'm just using paint and a small angled brush here, a very old small angled brush, so my lines aren't as detailed and precise as I would have liked, but for a sketch like this it doesn't really matter. So I just sketch out the outline of the adult bison and the baby bison, and then I just fill them in, and this is just a mix of burnt umber and white. Then, with these sketches, I like to add my shadows first, so I'm just using some black acrylic paint, and again that same angled brush, just to block in the darker areas of both the baby bison and the adult bison. I think they're sometimes called buffalo, but I'm not too sure. We don't have them here in England. So I'm just blocking in these darker shapes and then adding in a slightly lighter brown colour over the top. That one's just a mix of burnt umber and black with a little bit of burnt sienna as well. So I like to work dark to light. I like to establish these dark tones first and then build up the lighter ones over the top, which is what I'm doing here. I'm starting to dot in some of that nice fluffy brown fur, just using some burnt sienna mixed with a tiny little bit of yellow ochre. I continue to build up those layers, one over the top of the other, this time raw sienna, and then finally some raw sienna mixed with some white and a little bit of yellow ochre for these final fluffy highlights. If this was a bigger painting, I would definitely be doing more detail here. But for a little sketch, a little thumbnail sketch like this, where you're just practicing composition, just practicing your colours, it doesn't really matter too much about details. And I do really encourage doing paintings like this, just little sketches, little thumbnails that aren't necessarily super detailed, but it gives you a chance to practice new skills, new techniques, and just design new compositions. It's great for when you can't spend hours and hours and hours on a painting, and you've just got 30 minutes to an hour or so to do a sketch like this. Once I'd got those horns in, I just added some shadows just by glazing over the top with very thin watered down acrylic paint, and then made a start on the background again, or more specifically the foreground. And I'm just using this small detail brush. As I've said in my other details, I just get those small detail brushes from a company called Broadmere. They are just cheap brushes that you get a pack of 5. They don't last many paintings, but they are great to use. I just start to build up the foreground a little bit more than the background, just adding some whiter highlights with that small angle brush, and then decided to just put this smoky texture to the back of the bison. Then this was the most nerve-wracking bit. I wanted to make it look like they were walking through snow, and this was really scary because it meant painting over the entire painting. I could have done this first by just painting the bison with slightly off colours, but instead I decided to glaze over the top with this big flat brush. Not completely solid strokes, but trying to give it those lines to indicate that fast snow blowing into their faces. Once that was done, I decided I wanted some more solid snow in there just to add to the effect, so I just added some more snow using those small detailed brushes. I tried to be as random as possible here, not worrying too much about the shape and the size of the snow, I was going to say strands, but the snow pieces, and then just blocking the rest of it away, just adding some more of that snow, that faded snow with that flat brush, and then I decided to call it finished. So this is a sketch for a charity, and I will post more about that later on, but it's for Artists for Painted Dogs, so stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed the video. Here's the finished piece. I really enjoyed painting it, even though it was really stressful, but it does go to show if you just carry on and persevere, you can produce something that you're happy with. Again, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. As always, for more wildlife art tips, head on over to studiowildlife.com.